She was our breaking news last night, and she is our next guest tonight. Here is how Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of Illinois made news last night.
Today, I am announcing that I believe that the House of Representatives should begin an impeachment inquiry officially.
And this morning, another Illinois member of Congress, freshman Sean Casten, followed Jan Schakowsky's lead.
Should there be an impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump?
So with great regret, the answer is yes. I came here as a businessman and a scientist, and I wanted to work on climate change, and this wasn't why I came. But the daily assaults on the Constitution, what we know Russia did, and the failure of the president to allow us to do our job has, I think, made this a necessity.
And two more Democratic members of the House announced their support for an impeachment inquiry today. California Democrat Tony Cardenas and New York City Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez.
I have long viewed impeachment as a last resort, not just because it is politically divisive, but also because such a course of action must be grounded in the facts. Today, given the facts available, I believe an impeachment inquiry is the only path forward.
That brings the total number of Democratic members of the House who support impeachment to 72, and one Republican member of the House supports impeachment. Joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, who represents Illinois' 9th Congressional District. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I don't know if you saw us here last night trying to guess what went on between you and Nancy Pelosi before you made this announcement. So tell us, did you check with Nancy Pelosi? Did she ask you not to do it? Did she ask you to do it? What happened?
She didn't, but I enjoyed last night. I was sitting on my couch in my robe watching you speculate, all of you, on what Nancy might have said. I did, of course. I did check with her. We had a conversation about it. I told her that I was going to make this announcement. She never tried to talk me out of it. And she continued to make very clear that our caucus is going to continue legislating and litigating and doing all the things that we need to do and investigating to make sure that look, Nancy Pelosi has never shied away from talking about the President of the United States as someone who has committed crimes, someone who is unfit for office, as I've had. And so she certainly didn't try and talk me out of this. On the other hand, she's proceeding ahead vigorously to do what she's been doing.
So, Congresswoman, I know that Nancy Pelosi does not have a stronger supporter in the House than Jan Schakowsky, and also Congresswoman Velázquez. And when I see the two of you coming out within 24 hours of each other this way, am I wrong to look at this as something that Nancy Pelosi not only does not oppose, but actually supports?
No, that is not the case. This is very personal. For me, it's very personal. Not only have I heard from over 1,000 people from my district, but it's personal because my son has been encouraging me. How could you, Mom, as a progressive Democrat, is there someone who is more deserving of being impeached? Were not the founding fathers of this country thinking about the possibility of a Donald Trump? Is there a better example of someone who has defied the Constitution, who has obstructed justice, who is every day diminishing our democracy? And I really thought about this almost as a legacy issue. What am I going to say to him today, and what will I say to my grandchildren tomorrow in a situation like this? On the other hand, I am not whipping other members. I'm not trying to convince other members. Everybody has to make their own decision. And in the meantime, we are proceeding forward in unveiling every day. You saw the hearing today with Hope Hicks and the kind of stonewalling that we're getting, the cover-up, and more American people are seeing that every day.
When I was working there, I saw situations where members of the House or members of the Senate were going to take a position that was difficult for the leadership at that time. And there were a lot of different ways for the leadership to play it, including asking the most loyal members, please don't do that, which is something Nancy Pelosi could have asked you to do. And then there's the other version of it, which is, can you give me a week? Can you give me a month? Can you wait till after Labor Day? And that is usually something that the loyal members who support the leadership are willing to do for the leadership. But just to clarify, what you're telling us is Nancy Pelosi didn't ask you to delay it. She didn't ask you to pause in any way. She heard what you said you wanted to do, and she basically just said, thank you for telling me.
Exactly. I gave her a heads up. We had a very cordial and friendly conversation. Look, she's not like the President of the United States who asked Jim Comey, are you going to be loyal? Are you going to be loyal? Or tried to get the Attorney General to unrecuse himself because the Attorney General is supposed to protect me. Nancy is the most sure-footed politician I have ever seen and is very confident in what she believes and what she's doing and is not trying to press anybody to do anything.
And what's been the reaction so far in your district?
Oh, it's really been overwhelmingly positive. And as I said, I've been hearing from my constituents. This is a pretty progressive district that I represent, a diverse in many ways, but also a solid Democratic district. And most of the people that I hear from have been very, very positive about impeachment. But, the other thing that's really important that Nancy makes the point, impeachment inquiry is not going to end with the end of Donald Trump. And that is ultimately the goal, that we want to be sure that we defeat, then that is the most likely way to do it, defeat Donald Trump in 2020 and prepare for that by mobilizing our troops, all the people who want impeachment. We want to see them out registering voters and mobilizing their friends and family to get out to vote, because I think it's so unlikely that the Senate would act on this, and so we have to get rid of him. This is clear, but we're not going to likely do it because we end up impeaching him. But it's also important to say that Nancy Pelosi has never taken impeachment off the table. If there are some stunning revelations that are coming that we manage to get, and that's not impossible, because anybody who has read that Mueller report, I've read it all the way through, it is slam dunk. The man has obstructed justice. He has attacked our institutions. He is blatantly flouting the law, and we've seen it just recently with this idea that I'll take any kind of dirt from foreign governments, and I may or may not report it to the FBI. And then, of course, we also saw that the head of the Election Commission said, let me make this 100% clear to the American people and to all candidates that it is illegal to do what the president has suggested.
Congresswoman Schakowsky, I just want to get a little bit of more cooperation next time you're breaking news like last night, okay? When you're at home on the sofa watching this show, talking about the news that you just broke, just pick up the phone and call us. You can stay in your pajamas, just call us.
Okay.
And then the speculation ends, and we can just ask you right there on the spot, how did it go? What did you say to Speaker Pelosi?
Okay, Lawrence, I'll be on the phone.
We
Thank
can do
you.
it from the sofa next time. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.